change my
right
mind.
when we get, right when it's my turn to school.
Will you have the application and the letter and everything?
Yep, it's the first agenda item. Yep.
Okay. Because then I'll get out of your hair once I tell you I don't think he's good.
Ms. Barnhart going to be absent?
Put it first.
Show me your code.
What?
All right, we're live. It's 6:30.
And be your secret identity.
Or Amy is coming, so I don't actually.
Amy's coming, maybe
but
we want to wait?
Okay.
Yes, we're waiting just on one, but if they want to grab their seats, we're gonna wait just a little bit for Amy. Sure. Out of your hair. Always fun. Yes. Challenges.
Right.
But they're the only. I mean, you want to take the. Very true.
Hello.
Hi.
So the doors were locked.
Oh, I'm sorry. I assume since all those people are in here, they gotta hear something. Yes. Yes.
Oh, she's ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yep.
We'll go and call the Thursday, September 16th, 2021 meeting of the Ronesburg Board of Zoning and Building Appeals to order. Time is 6:35. We can please have the roll.
Ms. Barnard,
Here.
Ms. Bowles,
Here.
Mr. First,
Here.
Pastor Linder,
Here.
and Mr. Redkey.
Here. Are there any additions or changes to the minutes as submitted? Hearing none, we'll mark those as approved. Are there any changes or corrections to the agenda as presented? I believe there is, isn't there? Didn't we pull item D3?
We did, correct, yes.
There's still a conditional use application. The variance has been removed, correct?
Correct, just the variance. They were listed originally as separate agenda
Okay,
items.
that's fine. Hearing that, the agenda stands as submitted. Speakers, do we have anybody wishing to speak before the board tonight? If you want to, please stand, raise your right hand, and we'll issue the oath. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give in front of the board will be truthful? If so, please say I do. We'll just remind you when you come up, state your name and address for the record. Is there any public comment? Item B, public comment.
Yeah.
Don't all rush up here.
I'm sorry?
Don't all rush up here.
Well, someone's got to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name's Keith Benner. I live at 1200 Creekside Place, Reynoldsburg, Ohio. I'm talking about D1 on your agenda, the Lancaster Avenue zoning variance. I don't really think it's necessary for me to explain what the code says. I'm sure most of you know. It calls for 50-foot lots. I looked at, if you could put the letter up there that accompanied the application. The letter in and of itself tells you that it's a violation of our code. He mentions the lots at Bryden and Lancaster, which is not really close and in a totally different zone. Everything north of Bryden and Lancaster, for the most part, probably averages a 70 or 80-foot lot. Some of them on the west side are 100 feet. He mentions that his lots are deeper. There's nowhere in the code that it says that if you have deeper lots, you can have narrower lots. He mentions that he's going to move utility lines and fix utility lines and build the houses all at the same time, and that's great. But once again, does not qualify as a hardship. And you need a hardship to approve this. So if you look at the last, Emily, if you could raise that up just a little bit. Paragraph 4, finally, the code specifies the economic hardship is not grounds for a variance. He just answered your question tonight. It's all economics. The houses directly across from that lot, mostly Brookside homes on the east side, average 70 to 80 feet. 270-foot or 72 and change foot lots across from that would look very nice and fit in with the flow of everything else that's going on. The only reason to allow 3 is an economic reason, and you're not allowed to approve it based on that. Thank you all for your time.
I'd just like to take a moment. Wouldn't it be best to actually have D1 presented, have the party speak, and then any comments from the public then, as opposed to?
I mean, we can certainly.
Okay. I was just wondering if public comment is premature. Because there is a response within the actual presentation of it.
I think since we've started it the way that we have, I feel like it's just cleaner to allow it to go this way if we want to debate that at the next meeting, and certainly allow it as public comment that's not associated with the different applications, then we can certainly do that moving forward. But since we've started it, let's just finish it this way.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Brett Luzader, 1116 Gibson Road, Reynoldsburg, Ohio. Chairman Redke, I've expressed that same sentiment for the last, I don't know how many months, with this body and also with the Planning Commission. I think it's more prudent to have statements made when the actual item comes up. But I would also like to reiterate some of Mr. Benner's comments. But I also want to say that the new zoning code was just approved a year ago, March. I think we need to allow the updated code time to work. The only reason this variance is on the agenda is to allow the developer to make more money. And as Mr. Brenner said, that is not a hardship. The other lots in that area are approximately 70 to 75 feet wide. To put 50-foot lots in there and even a 43-foot lot would really be out of place in that area. So therefore, I would respectfully ask that you deny this variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to unfinished business. There's no unfinished business come before the board, so we'll move on to item D1 under new business. Application 2021-5436 for Lancaster Avenue. Can we please have the presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first agenda item is for parcel ID 060-000997-00. This is for a residential zoning variance. This is within the suburban residential zone. The lot is currently vacant. And the applicant is requesting BZBA approval for a zoning variance to subdivide an existing approximately 0.69 acre parcel into 3 lots, as shown on your screen. The lots would be developed with detached single-family homes. SR does require a minimum frontage of 50 feet as well as minimum lot width of 50 feet. The applicant has proposed one of those 3 parcels with both a frontage as well as a width under 50 feet, hence the request for a variance before you. And I believe the applicant is here if there are any questions. And I'll pull up some additional renderings as well.
Mr. Spencer, you're more than welcome to come up and give your presentation.
Just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Tim Spencer. I'm the president of Trivium Development. The address is 210 North Lozelle Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43215. Before I begin, I think I would like to point out to Mr. Bowser and the city attorney, I believe the open comments are usually for residents that want to talk about something that's up and coming or on their mind, specific back and forth objections and support for projects is usually after a presentation. It's been my experience. So, with that, I think I need to probably start off and apologize for getting a D- in senior year English because my letter obviously missed the mark on what we were trying to accomplish. The idea that this is simply an economic hardship goes against fundamentally everything we've done in Reynoldsburg in the last 18 to 24 months related to purchasing homes, renovating homes, development plans, and overall well-being for the community. So unfortunately, it's my opinion that when you take the current code and you take our parcel, in which we have 2 conforming lots, which are at least 50 by 100 feet, our hardship is the practical difficulty of developing the 3rd lot, the leftover piece. So again, we're building 2 conforming lots, and what we're left over with is non-conforming. The definition of a practical difficulty is what's to be discussed or interpreted. And I'd like to point out your zoning code, albeit new, zoning code, whether it's Reynoldsburg, Ohio, Dublin, Ohio, Gahanna, Utah, Arizona, Florida, zoning codes are designed to be inherently rigid and difficult and to govern a community, not with a one-size-fits-all, but to be able to have opportunities to state your case, state your reasoning and your intent, and boards such as yourselves do have the ability to grant variances. So when you look at our application with 2 conforming lots, the minimum requirements are 50 feet by 100. I didn't create those. I'm asking for those lots to be created at 50-foot intervals. There are a number of instances in your code that, especially as it relates to lot coverage and it talks about area coverage, there are a number of instances in your code where minimum widths and depth are talked about, but so is lot area. And what I want to point out in the code is if you take 50 by 100, which is the minimum sizing, you have lots that should have a surface area of 5,000 feet. Simple math, 50 times 100. Our lots that we're creating, as you build them out, the first lot is 11,400 feet, the second lot is 11,350 feet, and the lot we're asking for a variance is 9,756 square feet, a full 90% greater than what the code is requiring. So again, we create 2 conforming lots by following the letter of the law with foot frontage, and we're left with a practical difficulty of not being able to develop the third lot. As relates to economics, yeah, it is important to do 3 lots because for some reason, 20, 30 years ago, AT&T, WOW, Verizon, everyone else came in, and we can literally jump up and touch those power lines. And it's a challenge to figure out how to move those lines, how to work with AEP, how to fix that pole, and develop it with 2 lots. Yes, the third lot does make it economically viable to clean that mess up. It doesn't put more money in my pocket. I'd love to say that's the case. But the third lot allows us to bury utility lines with AEP and fix that unsightly mess. And those are the 3 homes we'd like to build with Monticello Homes. So this was an opportunity for you to say yes or no to the variance. And as I thought through it, we went through the added time and expense of creating this exhibit to show you that 3 homes could be built simultaneously or at the same time from the same builder. This isn't speculative. You know what you're getting. We'd be happy to bring back materials or whatever the protocol is for that. We don't actually swing the hammers and paint the walls for Monticello Homes. But if that would give peace of mind or assurance that you're getting a good end product, we'd be happy to agree to that as a condition. But it's our opinion, if the attorney wants to see, his attorney wants to weigh in, but we believe this is a practical difficulty as a result of creating 2 conforming lots. And the lot that is technically 7 feet or 6.5 feet short is 90% greater than the code requires in surface area. I'd be happy to answer questions or let the gentlemen who are opposed come back up and give a rebuttal.
May I add something?
Yeah.
So just as a contextual, I guess, element to the code, the reason why we have a lot frontage was to prevent flag lots in the community. And a flag lot is dictated by having a smaller frontage, typically just 20 feet for a driveway, and then it spanning out. And they have a lot of problems with those in rural areas, and we do have some rural areas, believe it or not, in Reynoldsburg. And so our goal was to set a number, maybe even more arbitrary than anything, to try and prevent that. And that has always been the goal of why that is. In fact, there's been conversations that really, maybe we missed the mark on that number, and really we just need to bolster the code and put in specific language and define what a flag lot is and just say it's not permitted in the community, and understand that certain homes, especially with the cost to build them currently, understanding that smaller lots force there to be smaller homes, lower prices, variety of price points. I mean, I don't think that you can even find a home underneath of $200,000. And I think even, what's interesting is even Mr. Lazader has even made a comment, to me and outside of this building about, well, why can't we build more smaller homes that are more affordable to entry-level builders? And I think this is a great incident of us being able to do that and meeting the market demand that's currently out there. And I think by not doing this, I think that there's a grave hardship because of the housing crisis that we face currently in Central Ohio. And by forcing, I think, developers to build large lots, you're only, saying, well, we only want wealthy individuals living in our community. And I don't think that that is the city of respect, nor what we're trying to do in our community. So I just ask that you take a look at that, factor that in, that the 3 lots meet the intent because they're not flag lots, and you just weigh those as options as well. Thank you.
Questions, concerns, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Mr. First. Mr. Spencer, I think the models that you presented here to us are, very attractive. I don't have any problem with that. I know your company does good work. I don't think anyone's really questioning the quality of the development that would occur on the lot. So I just want to make that very clear. And maybe like Mr. Boucher said, maybe the code is more vague or deficient in some areas than maybe it should be to accomplish the intent. But I think the point that everyone who spoke about the hardship requirement is trying to make is that the code is very clear that a hardship is required. It is not sufficient in and of itself. There's still other factors that we have to weigh if we were to grant a variance. But that is probably the most significant factor that we have to weigh. I've heard you talk a little bit and use some of the words that are in the code. I just know myself that I am still not entirely convinced that there's deprivation of the beneficial use of the land. I mean, you could certainly use it to its intended purpose if you built 2 homes instead of 3. I guess I would like to hear more, and please be as specific as you'd like to be about how this creates a hardship for you that was not already known before you purchased the lot, or maybe you've had it in, for years before the code was written.
No. I'd love to think as you go from community to community that you can have good recall of code, and that's why you have land planners and engineers looking at it. No, we acquired the ground. Let me give a little backstory. We have acquired a number of, for those that remember the Summer Rays homes, we acquired those out of receivership last year. And we've been slowly renovating those. One unfortunately caught fire on Main Street last week. But we started making a commitment last year to Reynoldsburg and tied that into some of our other commercial commitments to the community. And I bought the ground, really, it went up for sale. We had contacted the previous owner. They decided not to work with us. They put it up for sale with a realtor, and we were working and still working with the Alliance to get their housing needs met in the community. As you know, it's a very robust community here. And so we literally just did a title commitment and bought the ground, to answer your question. Walked the site, realized there's probably a home there. It's probably 40, 50 years ago. You can see an old driveway. There's probably a foundation or 2 buried. No cisterns, nothing stuck out, but the cables, the wires did. We did a quick look of the one exhibit. Emily, if you can show the one exhibit from the city or from the county's auditor's website that shows the foot frontage and the depth. Quick review of your code. It's pretty easy to navigate yourself if you have the plug-in, and you just kind of, we took that exact same image, looked at it and said, hey, this makes sense. It's 3 lots, just given the foot frontage. When you do the exact math, you see that it's 6.5, I think is our request, feet short. To answer your question, I don't care how this sounds now because it's been a long day, but that's a reasonable request to look at this as the business I'm in of creating housing and office opportunities and commercial opportunities. 6 feet is when you have a driveway to the south side, and honestly, I assumed your code had square footage requirements. Other communities, again, on the lot coverage, the size of a house, that's just a normal foot frontage is not. Foot frontage by itself is not criteria for lot splits around many communities around Central Ohio. I'm not picking on your code.
Sure.
Don't misunderstand that. So when I looked at that and saw the dimension, saw the requirement of 50 feet, but then saw it was at best 2.25 times bigger, in my mind, that's not an issue. I mean, you got more green space, which is number one, Mr. Bowser. In the intent of that code, the SR code, it is to provide more green space as you could than by 50 by 100. There is some terminology. So in my mind, when I looked at this, you do the simple math, you do the back of the envelope analysis with your consultants, we offer twice as much green space. And the lot that is in question for the variance, we're offering 90% more space than what's required by the code. And if the attorney would chime in, I'd appreciate it, but the definition of practical difficulty is by doing two things right, we're left with something that's a practical difficulty.
Well, maybe you could describe how, if we were not to grant you the variance this evening,
That lot's sitting vacant forever.
Would this,
No.
would this impair any of your other commitments to the city, or is it just you couldn't build?
That lot's not getting developed. I mean, it'll sit there. We'll talk to the gentleman, we've tried to reach out to the gentleman behind, he's been unresponsive. We'll ask him if he eventually would like to build it, but no, if it's not developable, it's not developable.
Mm-hmm.
Unless something changes, if your code gets revamped to include square footages.
So it's of your opinion then that if you couldn't subdivide it in this manner, that it would not be developable? It's not economically feasible to put two homes there?
No, we'll do the other two homes. I think the mark that I need to articulate is a bigger lot just doesn't mean a better house. I mean, I think
Sure.
the director made a comment, and some of the comments for the folks out for Mr. Simonello's application, it goes back to reasonable and not reasonable, that's not the right word. It goes back to acceptable and normal development practices, whether it's MI, whether it's Joe Simonello or Tim Spencer or EPCON. The house is the house is the house, and it has to have, just adding a bigger front yard or a bigger side yard or a bigger rear yard doesn't solve all your problems. These houses are pretty much programmed on the smaller lots to be the smaller homes based on where we think the market is. So we'll move forward with the two homes. And we've already engineered it. Honestly, we have these stamped. I mean, that's part of the requirements. So to go spend another $4, $5, $6 grand to go redo the work, we won't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware that the lot frontage requirement is not somewhat, but is arbitrary. You know, it's a number that was chosen for a purpose, and that, you know, there could be arguments to be made, you know, for it. I wish that our code gave us the ability to judge this based on the square footage or based on the overall application, but unfortunately, the way the factors read right now, it does not seem to be that even if we were able to judge it in that manner, that would outweigh the practical hardship, proof of hardship, you know, that we're asking you to articulate this evening.
Well, again, that's why we're here to discuss this. You want to wait? And I'll take the position that the leftover lot after creating two conforming lot is a practical difficulty of development, and therefore that's the hardship. So, and if it isn't, it isn't. I mean, It's a pandemic. You got a very robust housing market. I know the goals of Mr. Bowser's office is to create housing and create opportunities across a diverse group of incomes and for folks, and you seem to be doing a good job with that, with East Wind and with the MI subdivision and the Oliver and all those things. This made a lot of sense to check those boxes. Specifically, we were working with the Alliance. I stood right here 8 months ago, and told the Alliance that we would work with them to get their housing options met, and we thought we had an option for them. So if it's a no, it's a no.
Well, if that's your position, that the smaller lot that would be non-conforming is undevelopable and that is a hardship, then that's an argument to make.
Well, and that's the practical difficulty. That's the definition of practical. I didn't go to law school, nor stay at Holiday Inn Express, but I was hoping the city attorney would jump on the definition of practical.
The reason why he didn't chime in is because it's not specifically defined in our code. And so you can make an argument that states it is a practical difficulty because X, Y, Z. I just wasn't hearing that very clearly from you, but you've done that now.
Okay. Well, then my position is a practical difficulty is created by creating the two lots that are conforming to your code.
I have no further questions.
Any other comments?
This is Pastor Linder. I don't know if this is for staff, and it may show some of my inexperience. You mentioned doing two things correctly and then being left with this third lot. Public comment seems to hope for 270, just splitting it in half and doing that. You're saying you're not going to do that no matter what. It'll be two 50-foot lots that conform, and then this little strip will be left, and that's certainly your prerogative.
No, we have to do that work to get here. We've already done that work. So
exactly, I appreciate and understand that. But my thought was, had there been an option of, and again, I don't know if this is for staff, if you had come to us wanting a variance for 3 different parcels, but then it would have been 2.5 feet on each parcel, is that something you would have done? And if that seemed in any case, would that have ever been an option?
My initial application in discussions with the development department were to that point, should we look at 3 different lots that would be, 2.25 feet or whatever the number worked out to be, I forget. And we made the decision to ask for a variance on the one lot, given the depth and then its proximity. There's nothing going to be developed on that other parcel. It seemed better to ask for one lot that was not conforming than
that's what I'm guessing, but I wanted to hear it from you. That's
and if I'm in your seat and I bring an application with 3 non-conforming lots, to me that's a bigger ask than saying, hey, we did this the right way for 2 lots and here's what we're left with. So
I appreciate hearing your perspective. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I've got a couple. Dollar General one. We had one.
Mr. Rector, can you turn your mic on?
Oh, yeah.
Thank
My
you.
bad. There's no lot to depth ratio requirements in Reynoldsburg?
So there's minimums. That's 100 feet. That's what he was referencing earlier. The minimum lot width 50, minimum lot depth 100. It's clearly the lot depth is over double it.
So in the townships, I think one of Franklin County is you can't exceed 4-to-1 ratio. So none of that comes into play in Reynoldsburg?
No, not in these, no.
Our previous code did have a lot square footage requirement.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when you're trying to infill some of these areas, you know, it gets kind of complicated to match that intent. So, you know, that's another preponderance, I think. The code can address, you know, new development. I think it addresses that well, but infill, going back and trying to make the most out of, you know, those, for lack of a better term, those odd-shaped pieces that improper development has allowed over the years, or, you know, just the way property was carved out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the case we kind of had on Rotaball, or off of Rotaball back in the day. So there's a lot in my mind to think about, because we do this. I do see it across Franklin County in my, you know, 9-to-5 job, or 7:30 to 4 job, whatever you want to call it. So getting my head around what, you know, one jurisdiction would do and what another jurisdiction would do. You know, the code is the code. It does say.
Well, I'm sorry for interrupting, but you know, look, I mean, here's the reality. The code is written as it was intended to be read. There are factors for this board to consider, and those factors were written the way they are meant to be read. The question is whether or not any of those factors apply in this instance. And the notion that there is a hardship because he has a lot that only has 42 feet of frontage is not a hardship. That is a hardship by his making. That lot is currently not divided. There's no subdivision right now. So the notion that he has a hardship because there's a 42-foot frontage lot, that's of his own making. And I don't believe that necessarily constitutes a hardship within the confines of the intent of those factors to be considered.
And that's kind of how we ran into it with Dollar General on where Harbor Freight ended up going.
Right. To speak to your point, Mr. Least, the code actually specifies that the hardship cannot be of the applicant's.
Right.
It very explicitly says that.
Right. Which I believe that's essentially what he's arguing here. That by making this a 3-plot, or subdividing this into 3 plots, that he has a hardship because, or by not doing that he has a hardship. So it's not a hardship for him to subdivide this into lots that are greater than 50 feet of frontage. Excuse me.
For what it's worth, Mr. Spencer, I do agree with your assessment that one non-conforming lot is a smaller ask than 2 or 3. So thank you for that consideration.
And here's the kicker:
Noted.
if you put it in a common drive, you can get 4 lots, right?
I'm sorry?
If he put it in a common drive and orientated the lots north and south, he could put 4 lots in, and we wouldn't be here.
Right.
No, that's exactly right.
So,
Or a duplex, or something else. So.
I mean, there's a lot of options. So,
Just as a off base for this, who was the original owner of the parcel that ended up selling?
Family.
Sigmund family.
Sigmund family.
Appreciate it.
any other questions, concerns, comments?
Mr. Chair, did you want to?
Oh,
Let's
yes,
ancillary public
Mr.
comment.
Benner or Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Boozer,
Spencer.
want to come back up and say anything? Just identify yourself for the record, if you would.
My name's Keith Benner, 1200 Creekside Place, Reynoldsburg, Ohio. Already spoke once. I think the one thing I just want to reiterate to all of you is that the code is law passed by city council. They're the one that has the authority to do what we're talking about doing in a case where he doesn't meet the hardship. I certainly don't misunderstand why he would want to ask. You don't get anything in this world if you don't ask. But it's your job to make sure that the code is followed. His potential move would be to get the code changed. That would then go to council, and council, who has overriding authority on all of this, would then be able to vote. It was mentioned that this code is new. It was reviewed. Some of you and myself sat on the committee that reviewed the code. We made recommendations, and in fact, we changed lot widths once before for Mr. Spencer. If you want the code changed, that's something that he can apply for. The city can sit down and look at it again. But as it stands right now, I believe it's quite simply black and white in front of you in the code, and there's no way you should be able to approve this. Thanks very much.
I've always been of the opinion that, we've had some code that have been on the books for a while. This one being fairly new, we don't want to gut it right in the infancy of the code either, so.
I don't even know if that's particularly a consideration. I mean, sometimes you make the wrong calls and have the wrong standards, but there, as Mr. Benner did say, there's a mechanism to change that. One of the comments that we hear very frequently is that a lot of zoning codes and zoning boards seem to exist just to be window dressing, and really the end result is whatever the board wants. I think Reynoldsburg has made it very clear, especially in writing a pretty revolutionary new zoning code, that the code is what governs, not the rathers of the board members. If that was the intent of the code, that would be a factor for our consideration here. It is not.
Any other questions, concerns, comments?
Well, I do appreciate Mr. Spencer's time, and so I'd like to go ahead and make a motion here. We have considered the factors set forth in section 1109.13D, factors for code variances. I would like to move that we table this application for further discussion and preparation of findings of fact and conclusions at our next meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Any other discussion, comments? Hearing none, we have the roll call, please.
Ms. Barnhart?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. First?
Yes.
Pastor Linder?
Yes.
And Mr. Retke?
I guess yes. So that will be on the next agenda item in October?
I guess I just ask, certainly it's already done at this point, but we've obviously have established, or the board has established with the assistant city attorney, the findings of facts and understanding of why they wouldn't. I hate to beat a dead horse and have it come back. I think a simple no, if that is the board's intent, and certainly you can then allocate to why it's a no, and then we can end this tonight, would be more appropriate.
It's
I'm okay with the tabling. From a practicality standpoint, no vote precludes any other applications or variances at any other time, or within 12 months. So this at least gives us the opportunity to not have anything happen on the site for 12 months. I mean,
Well, that's just another variance. It doesn't mean that there's
went
nothing
really
that
well
else that can
tonight.
happen
Yeah,
to the.
I'm coming back with another variance.
to the line.
Tabling's the best option. We
Well,
could-
then, well, then my suggestion would be, if you know the next meeting that they're going to withdraw, or their vote would be a no, is for you to withdraw your
That's-
application.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought that was a softball pitch over the plate, is what I thought that was, so.
You are welcome to withdraw your application in between now and then.
That was,
You can certainly make a formal request right now.
And you can actually do that now, yeah.
no, I'd rather have the tabling go on the record.
Okay.
And then withdraw the application for the lot split and application and,
Understood.
yeah, formally, yeah, that's
The motion carries, right?
correct.
Okay,
Well,
yes.
I'm sorry, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Item D2, application 2021-5360 for 6050 East Livingston Avenue. Can we please have the presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our second application this evening is for a conditional use, application 2021-5432. This is for the property at 6050 East Livingston Avenue. This is within the innovation zone. The existing or prior use for many decades was for an auto repair shop, as shown up on your screens. Vehicular sales. Excuse me, the applicant is requesting BZBA approval of a conditional use to operate a car sales business. And vehicular sales, automobiles is listed as a conditional use in the innovation zone. The proposed use requires, one parking space per 1,000 square foot of gross building area. So the existing parking is sufficient. And the applicant has provided a site plan for the site, which I also have up on your screen. And I believe they're here this evening if there are any questions from the board.
You could state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Mustafa Zengil, address 5672. I'm sorry, that's the business address. You need my home address?
Whatever one you'd like to leave on the
5672
record.
Greendale Drive, Galloway, Ohio, 43119.
Is there anything you'd like to add to the staff's presentation, or?
Nothing really. Everything is in the application.
I'll jump in here. This is Mr. First. So they're not the same factors, but similar to variances, we're required to evaluate conditional use applications based on certain factors. I think the most important one, to my mind at least, is how a proposed conditional use aligns with not the existing use of the zone, but the intended use of the zone. Your application is quite exhaustive in speaking to how this aligns with the current use, especially the neighboring parcels. I think that's completely accurate. One thing that I really didn't read in your application, and I'm hoping that you can provide some more detail to, is how your proposed use here aligns to the intent of the zone.
So, I mean, it's an auto repair already. So customers come in and out. Nothing, we're not going to change anything in the building. We're not going to change anything in the parking lot. The same parking lots for customers now is going to be for the business to sell the cars. Only few parking lots for the customers will be appropriate. So really, everything should be exactly the same. I mean.
So the zoning for this parcel is called the innovation zone, and the intent
Yes.
of the code specifies that the intent is to facilitate the creation of economic centers. The desired development pattern includes construction of flex and/or industrial buildings to facilitate access to the interstate. It's meant to function as a job and business growth engine for the city, and also some light industrial and things of that nature. That's the intent of this zone.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was specifically asking for is if you could speak to, if it does, how your proposed use aligns to that.
From my agent.
Sure.
Yeah.
Kearns, 6606 Sailor Court, Canal, Winchester. Please forgive my voice. I did a lot of talking today, so I've lost it. It does not actually meet that criteria. I think the circumstance here is because the building, the way the building was constructed, the lot layout, it'd be very difficult to put something like that in this parcel, on this parcel. So, excuse me, it might be that that building sat vacant for a long time until it could be torn down, replaced, and that probably would not be the best thing for the city.
Thank you.
Any questions, concerns, other comments?
May I ask one question?
Yeah.
It was, I think it was, Emily, it was plates 1 and 2. There was a aerial site. That lot behind you, or behind that red, that's not owned by you?
That's not, no, it belongs to different people.
Is that a Twins towing?
Twin Auto Recovery.
I thought I saw that. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that that was not an area that you intended to store cars at.
No.
Okay.
I mean, to be very, very frank, you know, I think there is a lot to be recommended to your proposal. However, the alignment with the intent of the zone, in my mind, is the single most important factor for us to consider here, and also necessary, frankly. I personally would be just fine tabling this if you wanted to present more evidence at our next meeting that it does align to that intent. I don't know, maybe it was just a misunderstanding, you know, as far as, you know, what check boxes, you know, were required for our conditional use factor here. But you know, if you'd like the opportunity to do that, I'm willing to make a motion to table this. Or, you know, I mean, obviously the rest of the board has a, you know, say here as well, but it could, in my mind, then if it doesn't meet that intent, then it would almost have to be a denial of your application.
Any other questions, concerns, comments?
Sure.
I have it. Did somebody?
That was me, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Zangio, just a couple of questions. And I may not have seen it or looked over it in the packet here. Can you describe the type of or number of employees that would be employed here? You know, one of the factors obviously for the Innovation District is obviously employment. You know, certainly there's a variety of different housing that's located over in this area. We want to make sure that those individuals have suitable employment. It's the reason why this was rezoned in the innovation area. We really wanted to reconfigure and redesign what this area was. Bryce Road certainly in the day was a hotspot for commercial activity that has certainly fell by the wayside, and so we needed to really rethink what it would be. And so the Innovation District came to mind, and understanding that we were going to put people to work, we were going to have job centers, we were going to have places of employment and logistics and distribution and small-scale flex office spaces because of the proximity to I-70 and I-270. So it made it extremely well. So I think what Mr. First is trying to get towards is in the conditional use, you know, the idea of fitting within that district really lies within Section A and Section F in the standards and requirements for the conditional uses. And really what his goal was is the intent and the purpose of the Innovation District is to be those job centers. And if you can clearly define of why this business fits within those contexts, I think, you know, that's where you need to be. So understanding the number of employees, maybe the purpose of sales, the idea of tax-driven income, you know, that would be generated to the city as well as your own business. Those are, I think, things that we certainly want to take a look at that are certainly not factored in based on the conditional use, but those are things that really, subjectively sort of are laid out. And those two sections, I think you meet the rest of them truthfully, but A and F are really the ones that I think you need to lay into, and those are just the ones that we're not seeing within the packet.
Thank you for stating my case a little more eloquently.
Yes, please, sir.
I understand fully what the intent of the zone is. I think if you compare employment, the building that is there, 3,000 square feet, would not hold many more offices that would accommodate people than the 5 to 6 individuals that the car sales is going to have. And I think the revenue coming in from the car sales would be of more benefit than an office space there. As far as any light manufacturing, the building is such that it would be very difficult to bring any. You might bring a print shop in, for example, but they wouldn't have any more revenue or any more employees than the car dealership would have. So, we fully understand what you're speaking to.
Would there be any repair, such you'd see at an auto dealership, or would it just be focused on sales?
Yes, no, that was pointed out in the proposal.
Yeah, I just wanted to
yes,
have you elaborate on that.
Very, very definitely so. And there might be an increase if the car repair part of it builds to have more than 5 employees. The last business had up to 7 employees there. That's why I don't think, as far as creating more jobs, you're going to put something in there that's going to create significantly more jobs or more revenue.
Let me also just talk and just, we had an applicant on the backside, really catty corner of this business that this board heard earlier this year. And what we found was probably not a good use for the community. 1, because it was off of a residential street, and 2, because I think it was found out through investigative and communications that really they were going to utilize the site for really car storage is really what it is. They were certainly going to probably Manheim's on the weekend and certainly buying up cars and either fixing them there or just using them for storage, and it just looks extremely, shall I say, junky. You can clearly see just on the plates 1 and 2 map that it's already being done by 2 other facilities. And so for us, that's really not what we want to see in the area. And I'd like you to talk maybe a little bit about your business, the strategy, and why that potentially is not what this is, because that's certainly something that we are definitely going to take into effect, because that is the last thing more that we would want into an area that's very hard hit socioeconomically, and certainly an area that we'd really like to bring up in the city.
Okay, so where we at now, we're already doing a business in East Main Street, just down the street in Columbus. We're growing. Obviously, we're not, we're a car dealership. Yes, we buy from Manheim, but we don't have any other place to sell cars, so this is going to be our main place to sell cars. So you're not going to see only the junkyards over there, and then we're going to sell junk cars over there, and then we're going to sell from other sides. No, that's going to be our place to sell cars. And we've been in business since 2016, so.
How would you, speaking to Mr. Boucher's point, how would you, differentiate yourself from kind of these other used car dealers here? I mean, why other than maybe a very particular model that you might have in inventory, would someone come to your business versus one of the neighboring parcels here that's in the same business? And, maybe also too, because you are in business, maybe you could speak to the revenue projections that you might have if you were optimally successful here. You could hire on full staff, what that would look like as far as, economics for the city.
So, how we differentiate ourselves, I mean, we've been doing this for a long time now, almost 5 years. We've been selling cars. Our revenue is high enough to improve, to buy this lot. And that's the main reason we're moving out from that old place, is because we need something better. because our cars look better than the area we are at now.
So you would say that compared to some of the neighboring lots in your current location, that your offerings and clientele are maybe a little more upscale,
Yes.
and that's
That's
what you're looking to bring here?
correct, yes.
Would it be fair to say that compared to the neighboring lots that exist here on Livingston Avenue, that would be the case for your dealership here?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I just keep interrupting.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, what is the address? I would love for us to be able to pull it up. I think contextually, I think it would be really nice to be able to see the existing operations. If that would be
Existing operation is in 1351 East Main Street, Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, that's way.
Would you mind being able to pull that
4319.
up?
So while they're doing that, I have a couple questions. One's mainly for staff. So when that zoning code was created, we called this the Innovation District. We didn't particularly necessarily look at the size of the existing parcels, but we looked at the area. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
So when we came up with these zones, and of course this innovation zone, did we look at the individual parcels or just the area collectively?
So we looked at the area collectively, but we also looked at the specific parcels. So, for example, and I don't know the dimensions of this, but one of the things that we really wanted to do was understanding, and I think this was to the agent's point, was that we really wanted to see redevelopment of a lot of these. And so we actually created larger lot sizes to handle a lot of those types of larger and more industrial type uses that we wanted to see. Specifically also, and I know Mr. First can certainly speak to this because we've certainly had, not debates in amongst ourselves, but certainly collectively as a group about taking away other commercial uses out of the area because we really wanted to see that sort of go away because typically what you would find is it's the probably the more bad actors that are filling those types of those businesses, and certainly this area of town certainly has a lot of police calls and activities, and so our thought was if these are job centers, larger parcels, not only are you cleaning up the area, but you're fixing a lot of these problems that we're obviously dealing with that are here. So we did take a look at it parcel by parcel. This is a very odd section of the city. It certainly happens to be the west side of Bryce and one of the only areas that we kind of abut really, really into Columbus territory. In fact, actually just to the alleyway to the north, it's Columbus proper as well. But we did, to answer your question, we definitely took a look at specific lots, and we really thought that what you see currently right here is basically 4 parcels. And our envision was those 4 parcels would eventually be combined. We would work with developers and other outside resources to really combine a lot of these parcels to actually foresee something that was bigger and greater than what existed there today.
Because the reason why I bring that up, he brought it up, and if we're relying on that zone to dictate this innovation zone, and we're saying these smaller lots can't support that individually, but collectively, that kind of puts the owner in a bad bind of sitting on it.
Correct.
Because I don't know what could actually go in there that kind of would meet that definition.
I would also note for the board, we do allow auto repair as a permitted use, which is a little bit of a interesting.
Yeah, permitted but not. So that's kind of where I fall, is because this isn't the first one we've had in this district. And the code's what, a year old?
Very true.
We struggled with that too on that one, because do we let that sit until we can get more? That's kind of hard.
Well, and to be fair, when we have talked about changes to the code, we did leave automotive sales in there as a conditional use, I think, to make sure this is not an aside and to you specifically or your business, but there are unfortunately some other businesses in the used car sales business that operate in, as Mr. Boucher said, a very junky sort of way. And there were two factors there why we left it in. One was because we're not in the habit of creating non-conforming uses if we can help it, and two, because that isn't to say there couldn't be a nice used car lot there. So I think what we're trying to determine here is, does your application kind of fall under that, albeit very subjective determination of, nice, and if you could provide a little more information on that to help us, and like I said, I'm more than happy to move to table this. If you'd like to provide more information, I think that would help us make a clear determination here.
Yeah, go ahead.
To your point, I represent both sides, the seller and the buyer and dual agency, so I have another interest here that I want to ask a question about. If you do not allow the car sales and the former use was car repair, how does my client sell that property? It's really limited. The building is built for car repair and servicing, which fits into his needs very well for detailing and repairing of cars coming in. So it puts my seller at a great disadvantage in selling that property or obtaining a good market price. Because if you limit it to offices, the price for that building decreases.
Well, it's not just limited offices. I mean, if he wanted to operate a car repair business, he could do that without coming before the board.
That is correct. That's a permitted use.
Yeah, auto repair is permitted, but auto sales is conditional.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the industrial uses that are listed here in the Innovation District are truly the longest permitted list out of any district, so any type of argument that's being made of a taking is certainly false.
No, I wasn't. I was not implying that that was I was not implying that you were taking. I was just inquiring for my client to understand exactly
who to market it
who
for.
to market to.
Yeah.
Correct.
Can I ask a question about your site plan? Because you have it labeled as customer parking. Was the intent to display the for sale vehicles in those spaces as labeled, or would there be cars kind of parked all over? What is the intent for that? Okay.
The customer parking would be labeled.
So would you be restriping the lot? I mean, there is, I think, a number of spaces there.
Stripes on it now.
Okay, they've worn off over time.
Over those stripes that you see in the area.
Okay.
Can you go back, Emily, to that last? Actually, I think it was the one before that. It was the schematic. So when it's just a question, but when I was looking at the picture, I don't know, it was probably one of the other slides. There was something out in the front that looked like, almost like a well in the yard area. What is that?
That's the area of the monument sign. There's a sign.
No, it was actually a frontage view. There was a frontal view. It's actually out about where that second tree is on the other side of that driveway in.
Ms. Wheeler, could you maybe pull it up on Google Street View?
That's probably what I did. I was just curious. There was some concrete by the street that was in the yard in front of that building. It might not be there
I
now.
don't know, it's not there
Okay,
now.
all right.
When I did the actual survey for this.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry, Mr.
Good.
So I work in finance. So, even if you had a formal business plan or, revenue projections, things like that, we actually have the power to require those things. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm asking, those would help us make a decision. And so, I think your intended use here is, what you intend to use is very clear. The thing that we're trying to determine is, frankly, that it would, as much as we're able, that it would be a successful business. because there is that economic engine factor in the innovation zone that we're looking to encourage. Obviously, all business comes with risk, and if it doesn't work out, for your business, then the city wouldn't hold you to that. But we do just want to make sure that it's because we have some additional consideration factors here, because it is a conditional use. We just want to make sure that it is a very thriving business. So any more evidence that you could provide to that would be helpful.
I'd also just add to, not that we need to make a decision or what exactly they would be to be added on, as additional sort of conditions onto this conditional use, but the board definitely has the ability, as we did with our special exceptions, if we were to grant something, to certainly set parameters and ways to be able to check on those types of things, and certainly it could be temporary to lead to more of a permanent conditional use based on grounds of sort of observing and ensuring that it meets to the specifications and the level of comfortness that this board and the city really hopes is in this area.
That kind of brought me to my next point. I know we approved one, again, quite some time ago, just down Bryce Road. They promised, 10 to 12 cars. They're probably pushing 40. They've got them on gravel. They've got them stacked. There's no parking whatsoever. It's become a real issue because we discussed that. Is there a way, because he's saying 20 to 25, so what would prevent him from putting 40?
Right, and I think that would be, those are certainly conditions that the board can certainly
and that's
put
something
on there.
that the city can enforce.
I would really, I'll let the city attorney speak to the specifics of that, but.
Specifics of what? The number of cars he can put there?
No, I'm just asking that, clearly we can put stipulations on the conditional use, but I do not know the bounds of that, and I think your degree would come in handy in understanding
well, yeah,
what can be added and what cannot.
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the limitations of that
And I think it just leads to, I think, Mr. First's point of understanding that I think we need to maybe do some research as staff and administration, and I think maybe a little more due diligence and research on your part.
Excuse me for asking, Andrew, but it sounds to me like you're asking if we put limitations into conditional uses, or boundaries or parameters, are we modifying the code?
No.
Are we? No.
I think he's asking if.
Is that permissible?
Well, if these were factors that, say, weren't necessarily in the property maintenance code, he would obviously be required to comport to that. But
sure.
If they were additional factors, such as a limitation of number of cars, perhaps a time limit, similar to our special exception use permits that we had, where it was for a limited period of time, subject to additional review by the board after, let's say, a year, 6 months, whatever we would decide, if those would be, if factors like that would be something that the city attorney's office would be comfortable with enforcing and frankly would be enforceable, according to your opinion.
Well, I think that's something that needs to be looked into, but I think also as we discuss this, and certainly with consideration to his application, if he envisions additional growth beyond that, I think that would be something he might want to address in the event that you are looking at this from the perspective of he's saying I'm going to have 24 cars and you're concerned about him having 50 or 40 and how that might change the overall consideration of this, then I think that's something that he might want to address as well while we continue to look and see if there's any parameters we can put on it.
Yeah, because we've been snookered on that at least once or twice.
And I can understand that and I can appreciate that, but then on the other hand, as an individual who's a businessman who's obviously taken the time to present a package, who has the hopes and dreams of creating a solid business here in the city of Reynoldsburg, I think that's something then that might For instance, if we were to say, well, 24 is 24, and anything above and beyond that, that may dampen his dreams, if you will. And so to the extent that he may envision something beyond that, so that we don't run into a situation like we currently have, that might be something he wants to address. In the meantime, I'll get with the city attorney and we'll see what we can do.
I mean, there's quite a few that we've done that to. There's a U-Haul on Bryce.
Right.
We agreed to 6, no more than 6. They had to be in a specific spot. That's not the case.
Right.
Up the road, we have another car lot, agreed to 10 to 12, I forget,
Right.
It's been years. There's 30, 40 there, easily.
Right.
Just for a note of clarification, because Mr. Shook certainly watches this and happened to send a note on Facebook. I'll just read what he said. If there's a condition on a conditional use permit and that condition is violated, the permit can be pulled. And I think we had established that we agreed to that. And certainly I think that is also establishes that we can add additional conditions onto that. I think that's kind of what I was asking and what those limitations really were. I think to your point, Mr. Least, it's an interesting point that you bring up, because I think one of the things that kind of comes up definitely in the zoning and things of that nature when you're talking about housing and elsewhere, you start talking about density, right, and understanding. And so when you talk about 24 cars, I understand it's a little bit differently, but think of it in the parameters of density of what really the city would like to see. We don't want to see something that just looks like it's a junkyard and it's a heap that's got cars that are all over the place. I think we want something that's going to be tasteful and separated, and there's ability of light and air to be able to be there. I think that is certainly something that we want to take a look at. And I think, sir, if your growth opportunity wants to expand past that, I think coming back to us, telling us what that exactly looks like, because I think from our standpoint, we don't want you to just cram as much as you possibly can because you're thriving, you're growing. Maybe there's some other opportunities for you to grab other lands, which is really what the intent of the district was for. If there's the idea that that's how you would grow, instead of just putting more density on top of the existing lot, then I think that's something that the board would feel probably a little better about. And I think articulating that is something I think that would be swell.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if, Reichart or Lindsay was coming here and proposing a very large mega mall type dealership that otherwise complied to our code, I think it would be less a question of the economic growth engine factor that, is the intent of the innovation district. So it's only, and I hate to say this, because you're a small business, that it's of somewhat of a question. I mean, we're certainly very supportive of small business here in Reynoldsburg, but I would just like a little more, clarity on some of those matters.
Any other questions, concerns, comments, discussion?
Hi, I have a question as well. Also, as we're taking a look, there's also a lot directly next to it that's selling as well, and from the aerial view, they're kind of crammed in there. So I'd like to see what's going to separate you from your competitor right next door. Also, there's no lighting or anything on your lot and any kind of beautification for that lot. So I'd like to see that. In addition, more information about your current property in terms of, are you going to have 2 lots or just this lot, and your what was already communicated in terms of your business plan. So your revenue over the course of the past couple of years, obviously 2020 is askew, so you probably throw that out. But just trying to understand your sales growth and your growth model.
Any other questions, concerns, comments?
I have just another comment. This is Amy Barnhart. Because this is the Innovation District, and this is an area that we're trying to create jobs in, which then generates city income tax for Reynoldsburg. I'm just curious to know, about the jobs, what we would expect, if there's, the average salary or whatnot, just so that we kind of know what dollars to expect. Because, our goal for this district, we have a lot of residential. We have limited areas right now that, for the jobs. And I just want to make sure that we're trying to maximize our dollars to the city as much as we can.
Any other questions, concerns, comments?
I mean, as I've mentioned, we're happy to table this for additional
Yes.
consideration. So it seems like you're willing to do that. So this is Mr. First. I move that we table this application until our next meeting.
Amy Barnhart, I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? And I would ask the attorney to come up with some, discussion points on conditions like that, how they can be enforced, that sort of thing.
Well,
If it's
I mean,
working.
didn't you suggest that Chris has already addressed this?
He did address that they can obviously be enforced. I think maybe what Mr. Redke was referring to is what we realistically can put on as
I see.
conditions, I think,
Okay.
Yeah, because
That's a great
we've done
point.
it,
Yeah.
and nobody's enforced it, so
Right.
I'm tired of doing it if nobody's gonna enforce it.
Well, I mean, I know we're
I know it's a
doing,
different administration,
Right.
a different
Well,
mindset.
we're
so-
doing a considerable amount of enforcement throughout the city, and I hope that the board recognizes some of the things that are taking place. But I will say this, we'll definitely look into it and see what kind of parameters we can make, because I certainly understand your concerns when you discuss some of these other issues that obviously are not going quite the way you had anticipated them going at the time those conditional uses were made.
Right, and I want to make sure that we don't overreach legally what we can do.
Well, absolutely, and I mean, that's all, as I said, I mean, here we have a business person that has a plan, and I think is enterprising entrepreneurs, they certainly don't want to limit their growth potential, but at the same time, and while we have to be cognizant of that, we also have to keep, I think, standards, and I think that's what Mr. Redke's basically, I think identifying, and I absolutely agree with you, Ms. Barnhart, that those considerations, they may not necessarily always be compatible, and we have to be cognizant.
Right.
Absolutely, so.
I think it's easy to deal with barren ground than something that's sitting there and has been sitting there, and you need to
Right.
find a tenant for it, because, it's amazing how many houses sit empty for 3 months, the shutters, gutters are all falling off, but if somebody had lived in there, you never would have seen that happen, so.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
They do fall apart pretty quick, so.
Sure.
I
I
think,
just hate having vacant property sitting around waiting on that one client to come in and gobble up half the block and develop something. It's not happening.
the Assistant City Attorney brings up an amazing point, and I just don't think that they get enough credit right now, and it's certainly a new sheriff in town. I think the code enforcement has done really a phenomenal job, so shout out to them and the attorneys, and certainly following up and taking things to the court, and it is a battle, and obviously a huge win with the Days Inn recently, and so shout out to the mayor, his administration, and certainly the code enforcement for what they're doing. We're actually going to get a fourth one by the end of the month, so with that all being said, probably another thing too that we would probably take a look at is the existing building that sits there is, honestly, it looks better than most of the buildings sort of around it. So we'd like that to sort of keep up. And I think that's probably another condition we'd like to see, obviously, is if there's areas that need repave, we'd like to see, you adding some of those, maybe some other additional landscaping and sort of beautifying that area. So that's just showing it's not just you picking a place for an added piece of a business, but that you're going to be not only a great small business owner, but one that's here that wants to invest in the community and wants to uplift sort of the area. And I think you telling that story and coming back with us on the 15th, I think that'll do you well.
Emily, sorry, because it's driving me nuts. Can you please go back to that street view slide real quick before?
It looks like it's landscaping rocks and
I don't know because I asked them, but it's left, down.
Oh,
right
the
there,
stuff in the
to
middle?
To your right. Oh, yeah, keep going down.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, down.
One more.
Right there.
Yeah, that. You see that concrete, sir? Or it looks almost like an empty
I think it's a
hole.
koi pond.
Is that,
I don't know, but that's what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
It looks like a little
Trevi
fish pond or
fountain.
something?
Yeah.
Looks like it probably had a little waterfall.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, I'm sorry. When I looked at it earlier,
it doesn't
I wasn't sure
exist
what
now?
it was.
Okay,
I
good.
might go pitch a penny in it on the way
Yeah, I
home.
didn't want to have anything we pass here that you'd say, I can't enforce it.
What's that? Yeah, right, yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
I want something you're willing to take on a challenge for.
Yeah, well, all the more reason why, I think the motion is appropriate at this juncture, and.
That's why I like having you here. See, we didn't have that in the past, so.
Well, yeah.
We get all these weird ideas on how to make it better, and nobody would pursue
I'm glad
it.
I can help, but there's also a reason why there's an assistant before my name, so.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. We had further discussion. Can we please have the roll?
Ms. Barnard?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. First?
Yes.
Pastor Linder?
Yes.
Mr. Redkey?
Yes.
The motion to table.
Thank you,
carries.
gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We'll
Yes,
see you probably next month then.
thank you.
October 15th.
Okay, moving on, item D3, application 2021-5434 Summit Road Southwest. Can we please have a presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologize, I'm pulling up some images here. All right, this is for a property off of Summit Road. Parcel IDs 107-0180-00 and 107-018030-00. Both are within the suburban residential zone. The applicant is requesting BZBA approval of a conditional use for the construction of a new residential development consisting of 80 townhome units. This is part of a larger development that was reviewed at the previous Planning Commission meeting. The site is currently vacant. The development is slated for, again, the October 7th Planning Commission meeting for major site plan review, again, after being tabled at the previous meeting. The proposed use, which is dwelling attached single family, is listed as a conditional use in the SR zone, and adequate parking is provided on the site plan as shown. And with that, I believe the applicant is here. If there are any questions or further comments.
Yeah, if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Joe Simonello, 567 Lozelle Road, Westerville, Ohio, 43081. Thank you, Chairman Rickey, and thanks, Emily, and Development Director Bowser working with us on the plan. It's been a long meeting for you all. I'm here to answer any questions.
There's nothing you want to add to your presentation then?
Well, that is nice that Emily's able to pull up the plan here. It's part of a master plan community. Main road coming in from what was previously approved off of Main Street. The road you see with the roundabout is a continuation from Horseshoe Road out on Main Street. And we have no driveways coming out to that road. These four families will be fronting the road, fronting the park, giving it a nice atmosphere across from the park that you're not going to have cars in driveways or garage doors open. They're all rear loading. So aesthetically, it's a big reason why we put the four family townhomes there. And it's nice the people in the townhomes are close to the open space as well, since they do have green space in the rear, but not your typical backyard.
Any questions, concerns, comments?
Yes, Mr. First, I'll go ahead and jump in here. Thank you, Mr. Simonello, for your patience. It has been a long meeting. I do appreciate that you are planning the rear garage. This is the first townhome development application that we've received that has matched the character that's been described in our code. We have had images of that, and there's been questions too, why don't we have that? So thank you for bringing that to us. You heard me harp on the intent portion of the conditional use factors here, and the intent of the suburban residential zone is to facilitate a diverse mixed use of single-family residences. In your opinion, does this meet that intent?
Absolutely. Typically, your townhome product is a 24-foot wide product, and if you're able to put them together, the next step up You get 30 and 40-foot, 50-foot wide lot or homes. And this does offer more affordability than a single-family home, less exterior, and just they are going to be a little smaller square foot than the homes themselves. So it does offer that diversity.
Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns, comments?
What kind of square footage are we looking at in these townhomes? I didn't see that.
I think probably from 1,500 to 1,800, maybe yes, they offer a third floor level, might get a little above that.
No, I appreciate the added additional green space, as Mr. First had pointed out. You know, the rear alleyways are certainly always the added benefit. The frontage that's going to be on that road is really going to be spectacular. I think it keeps in with the idea of when the city council approved this annexation. You know, we had images of what this was going to be like, and this additional added green space. Because certainly you could have shoved 30 more units into here easily, but you didn't. You added the green space, and that's a very important aspect of our code, that we wanted the ample green space, and so I really appreciate you being able to do that.
Thank you.
Glad you touched on the access too. I think that's a nice touch coming along that roadway, not having individual driveways, having it kind of set back a little bit more with the frontage being out.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little easier on the eyes, gives it a little bit more depth perception than what you would typically see. Kind of, I don't know, kind of like Easton as you're coming down, what is that, Morris Crossing, or, you know, how you got those buildings right there. So the appeal is a lot better than what it could be, in my opinion.
Is this product meant to be for rental or for home ownership?
Currently, it's for sale for home ownership, the townhomes. Not to say that they wouldn't be rented by owners.
Right.
Can't limit that, but the intent.
Could be a private owner and
with this product.
Private owner and up to their discretion whether to occupy or rent.
Mm-hmm.
What's that condo going to be called?
What's it going to be called?
Yeah.
Townhomes at Eastwood. I'm not sure quite yet.
I know you guys like to do townhomes or villages or.
We like to carry
cottages
the Eastwood theme all the way out from the renderings and the images that will be created on Main Street and along Summit. When we get into landscape plans, entry signs would have similar character, and there would be a theme to it. I'm just not sure quite of the names yet.
As far as building goes, you're just going to start building them and sell them, or do them in phases, or?
I'm sorry, what was the first part, Chairman?
As far as building those, are you going to do them all at once, or do it as a phased approach, or?
The southern portion would happen first, and then we anticipate the roundabout, the boulevard coming in, and the north-south road up to the roundabout, and then a subsequent phase would build out the rest of the townhomes further north.
And what was your estimated build out? Was it like 5 years, 7 years?
On the whole project, right about there. So I think 5 years. If we break ground sometime next year, hopefully, but I don't think you'd see any homes or townhomes until 23.
Any other questions, concerns, comments, discussion?
I mean, at least as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I think it's a very attractive product. I think this is a little easier determination for us. To me, it seems like it very clearly meets the intent here. I do appreciate that you're still trying to provide a very aesthetically pleasing product, yet also make it somewhat more affordable, you know, to diverse incomes. So, you know, that's not typical. So, you know, we do appreciate that. This is Mr. First. I'm just going to go ahead and monopolize the motions this evening. I move that we accept this application as submitted.
Olivia Bowles, I Agree. Second, sorry.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, can we please have the roll call?
Ms. Barnhart?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. First?
Yes.
Pastor Linder?
Yes.
And Mr. Retke?
Yes.
Thank you. Everybody
Sorry
have a
for
good evening.
such a long meeting, but
It's worth the wait.
It's-
definitely
Yes,
worth the
worth the
wait.
wait. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, now I lost my agenda. I think we're moving on to
Other business.
other business. So is there any other business come before the board?
Well, did we want to discuss the procedure as far as it relates to public comment? You know, did we want to make the public comment section, what is that, agenda item typically B? Did we want to make that more just general concerns and then also have public comment related to specific applications as part of the application process?
I would recommend that. That would be I felt it was out of place to start with that before the presentation.
Well, you know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, if you want to go ahead and change it, though, you know, so that that's the case, so that there may be some arguments that public comment would, some of the presentations that public comment might anticipating in terms of what might possibly be said, might be mitigated by virtue of the fact that you provide the presenters their opportunity to go ahead and say what they have to say, and who knows, maybe somebody might be surprised with the presentation in terms of what their viewpoint might be. I apologize today in as much as it seemed as though we only had 2 public comments at the time, and one having already gone, it was kind of an awkward, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, I didn't want to stop him, but I didn't want to interrupt or.
Well, I appreciate Development Director Bowser for stepping up and seconding my sentiment. I kind of felt like I was hanging out there a little bit.
No. Very astute. I just felt like we've already started the process, but let's talk about it. I'm glad that Mr. First brought it up. So I think moving forward, B, just general public comment, and then we'll allow the speakers to come up. And maybe when they write it down and we understand the speakers, you know, we'll know when those individuals are going to come up and talk and
Maybe
speak
clarify
after.
the public comment.
Absolutely, I think so.
Mr. Least, are you comfortable with us just having this general discussion, or would you prefer a motion? I don't think it's a formal part of our rules.
No, I think it's more of an administrative function and one
Yeah.
that doesn't upset your purpose or apple cart, just in terms of organizing how you want to proceed.
Was it Mr. Benner that alluded that he has the same concerns with planning commission?
Planning.
He does, we can address it there.
So just as long as we be in harmony with that, take what we're doing and bring consistency. That's my intent on anything is always consistency. Any other discussion?
No.
Well, I'd just like to, are we gonna see you one more time, or is this it?
You're going to see me one more time, or I would have maybe had a speech for you, so it's, no, it's fine. You know, you're going to see me on the 15th, you're good. My last day it's tentative, it's fluid right now, but it's probably going to be somewhere around November 3rd, 4th, or something like that. I think I will be here for the final planning commission meeting in November, and then I'll have a whole new area of people to yell at me, so.
It'll be exciting.
Yes, it'll be exciting. It'll be exciting.
I know people in Sydney, so we'll just send them your way then.
Well, there you go.
Get them pre-riled up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, you'll love this guy. He just.
That's right, that's right.
I'll say my congratulations and best wishes to next meeting. Any other comments, discussion? Hearing none, I guess I'll move for adjournment at 8:09. Thank you, board members.